the Storyteller Showcase, where we highlight storytellers and stories. And my name is Mark Berry, and I'm the host. And in the credits, you'll find my email. If you'd like to be one of our storytellers, we film in Auburn, California. Let me know in the email. If you'd like to have links to other programs that you'd like to watch, let me know in the email. I'd love to chat with you that way. And today, for your listening pleasure, we have none other than Norm Brecke. And Norm, I met Norm in Sacramento at the Sacramento Storytellers Guild, and I love it every time I get to hear Norm tell. And so I'm so glad that he agreed to be here with us today. And he's told me he's going to do some different types of stories during this program, which I'm thrilled about. So Norm, tell me, when did you first catch the bug? When did you first get interested in storytelling?
I can tell you that I started telling stories in September of 2002. And I know that because I'd seen a storyteller came in when I was teaching middle school unsuccessfully. And a guy came in to do a workshop, and he was a storyteller, Dayton Edmonds. And it was a great workshop, but what I got out of it was he was telling stories. And I was like, I think I could do that, so. Yeah.
So you started learning what kind
stories
of stories
over folk tales over the summer, and I had a few personal stories that I wanted to tell, but they weren't. I always have to cook them for a while before they, But it's nice to know that folk tales was what I started with, though.
Well said. Cook them. They have to develop. Yeah. That's like a negative in the. Well, boy, am I dating myself. We used to use negatives to take photographs, but and what are you doing these days with your storytelling?
Well, I'm just still trying to learn, and I'm trying to learn how to edit more. And it's funny, I'm just take what comes, try to say yes as much as possible, which has kind of always been my philosophy. Now I'm learning how to say no when I need to say no, though, too, which was part of the whole process. So it's been, over 20 years, but I'm always learning. That's what I do. So.
Aren't we all? Life is always learning, and thrilled to have you here. And I'm going to get off stage and let you take it away, Norm Brecke.
Well, thank you so much, Mark. And my first story is a folk tale from Norway. And I started out in storytelling, as I just said, as telling folk tales, and this one is from Norway, and it's one of my favorites. Once there was a man who. Well, he followed the road less traveled. During the summer times and when it was nice weather, he would go down, he would just choose a road in one direction and get work there. Now, he was a singer of ballads, which made him pretty popular in the evening, where he would get a few coins and possibly a pint or two. But he also did carpentry, and he would do work around just to meet new people, just to entertain himself. But in the fall, he saw some leaves going, he had to get home. So he was on his way back home again. He's walking along, and he could feel that cold wind. Now, he loved sleeping under the stars, but this night he knew he would have to ask for a place to lodge. So he came upon a big house, really large, and there was like an older man, maybe in his 50s. He had a gray beard, and he was out chopping wood. And so he walked up to him and says, "Excuse me, Father," which was the regular greeting in the old days to show respect for your elders. "Excuse me, Father, but could I possibly have a bite to eat and a place to stay for the night?" The man went, "Well, I'm not the father of this house. You'll have to speak to my father. If you go around the side of the house and into the back door is open. I think he's in the kitchen there." "Thank you, sir." He walked around to the back and peeked in, and yes, there was an old man in there. He had kind of a long hair, but a big bald spot on the top. And he walked up to the door and stepped in and said, "Excuse me, Father, but I was wondering if I could possibly have a bite to eat and a place to stay for the night." And the man looked up from what he was doing and said, "I'm not the father of this house. You'll have to speak to my father. He's in the dining room there. Go right in there. He's in there having, I think, some tea." Okay. The gentleman walked through the door, and there was an old man with long mutton chops, gray, bushy, and hair that kind of stood up all over. And he went over by him and said, "Excuse me, Father, could I possibly have a bite to eat and perhaps a place to stay for the night?" The man took a sip of his tea and went, "Well, I'm not the father of this house. You'll have to talk to my father. He's in the parlor, in there." "Well, thank you, sir." Walked into the parlor. He was getting a little nervous now. But he walked in there, and there was a man sitting reading a book, sitting at a chair, and the book was just inches from his nose. He was trying to make it out. You could see him reading. He walked up and he said, "Excuse me, Father, could I possibly have a bite to eat and a place to stay for the night?" Put the book down slowly and looked up. "I'm not the father of this house. You'll have to speak to my father. He's in the first bedroom on the left, in a bed." Thank you, sir." He stepped out of the room and went up the hall, and yeah, the door was open to the bedroom on the left, and he walked in, and there was a thin figure of a person lying in a bed. His covers all the way up. He had no hair at all on his head, and he looked emaciated, but his eyes were big and aware. He walked up to him and he said, "Excuse me, Father, I was wondering if I could possibly have a place to stay for the night and perhaps a bite to eat?" He answered, "Yeah, I'm not the father of this house. My father is in the cradle right over there. Over there. Yeah, see him over there? Over there." He looked over. He did see a cradle. He says, "Thank you, Father. Thank you so much." He tiptoed across the room, and there was just a baby's cradle. He looked in, and there was a figure that was about as big as a baby there, but it was completely covered with blankets, but the face was of an old man with a beard that went all the way from his chin all the way to the feet. "Excuse me, Father, could I possibly have a bite to eat and a place to stay for the night?" "I'm not the father of this house. You'll have to speak to my father. He's in a horn hanging on the wall in the hall." Thank you, sir. Thank you very much." And he stepped out in the hall. At this point, he was really nervous. He looked one way, there was nothing on the wall, and then he looked down the other end, and sure enough, there was a horn on the wall. Some old powder horn. He walked over to it, and well, he looked inside, and what looked like a little pillow, baby doll or something, was there, and there were just two black dots, two little nose holes, and a mouth. "Excuse me, Father," he yelled into the horn. "Could I possibly have a bite to eat and a place to stay for the night?" He listened, and he heard, couldn't make out a word of it. So he asked again, I'm sorry, Father, I didn't get that. Could I possibly have a place to sleep tonight and maybe a bite to eat? And then he put his ear right on the horn and he heard so faintly, yes, my son. Thank you. And with that, he looked around and 2 servants came along and escorted him to a huge dining room where he ate the best meal he had ever eaten in his entire life. And that night he slept on a large feather bed with soft sheets and reindeer skins over him. Oh, he was truly happy that he had taken the time and had the respect to find the true father of the house. And that's the 7th father. All right, my next story is a personal story. It happened to me when I was 13. Some events may have been melded together over time, but pretty much happened just like this. Get up! It was 4 a.m. and my brother Stanley, who was 8 years older than me, had woken me up in the most polite way he'd done it in the last 3 weeks. It was our 3rd week of hunting, and, well, I was ready for him this time because I was completely dressed. I had slept with my clothes on. Underwear, sweats, jeans, wool socks, long sleeve t-shirt, orange sweatshirt with long sleeves. I was ready to go right away. I rolled out of bed, I put on my green boots, and then I put on my jacket, and I zipped it up. I put on my baseball cap, and over my baseball cap I put my stocking cap, orange of course, for hunting, and then put on a vest. Then I sort of stumbled out the front door and was hit right in the face with the smell of acrid coffee. You might be surprised, but when I was 13, I didn't like coffee too much, and this coffee was, it was everywhere. And this wasn't like Maxwell House or Folgers coffee out of a can. This was a white can with coffee written in black letters on it. That was it. Oh, well, I made my way to the truck because 4 o'clock in the morning was drop dead time in our household for getting in the truck to go hunting, because I grew up in Coos Bay, Oregon, and we had to get up at 4 o'clock and drive 2 hours to go hunting. That was my brother and my brother's and my dad's decision. Now, in Coos Bay, Oregon itself, though, there are deer that live in town. They're kind of a menace around town. They ought to be hunting, at least near that town. But no, we didn't do that. You could drive 20 minutes and you could be surrounded by forest in Coos Bay. But no, sir, we had to get to where the good hunting was, which was apparently 2 hours away. And so I got in the truck, and my brother Stanley, he hopped in too, and he was jumping up and down on the seat. He was so excited, and I was like, and my dad looked over at me and he says, did you bring your hunting license? That was a fair question, because I had forgot it the first 2 weeks of hunting, or some of the days we had to drive back and get it, and one time we were all the way out there, and I'm like, oh, I didn't remember it. Yeah, you don't have to be Sigmund Freud to figure that out. But anyhow, I said, I've got it. Now it was important because I was 13 years old, and it was the first season I was able to go hunting with the Brecke boys. And that meant we were now going to be able to get 4 deer. And it meant a lot to the family. I was just hoping I wasn't the one who shot it. Now we got in, and of course, my dad drove over to my brother Vern's house. My brother Vern was 11 years older than me. He was already married. He had 2 kids, and so we picked him up. And then to get all 4 of us in the front of the cab of that pickup, it was a tight squeeze. I had to squeeze as close as I could to Dad and scoot down in the seat a little bit so that my brothers could get in on the other side. And then this put me right by the gear shift. So when my dad had his hand on it, it was like right next to my face. And the heat was just pouring in on me. And of course, you know what I was wearing, so it was hot. And we started to drive up. We were driving along, and oh, I tell you, I was already sick with that smell of the coffee, and now the heat, and my dad liked to smoke these green cigars as he drove along because he was with his boys, and we're going along, and they're having an easy conversation, and I'm trying to sleep, and I was like, all the curvy roads and everything. And so by the time we got that 2 hours down the road and up to the mountain where we were going hunting, I got out and I was sick. So I found a place to relieve myself while my brothers and my dad, they all got together and we're having an easy conversation about what we were going to do that day. And I thought, I don't fit in. I don't know how I fit into all this. They're into this. I guess I'm not part of it, but I was. So we were ready for our drive. We had found a canyon. Now this is how we hunted, the Brecke family anyway. We would find a little canyon, and my brothers, Vern on one side, Stanley on the other, and I would be down in the middle. And of course, there's always a creek in the middle of the canyon, right? So it would kind of it would be wet. And the idea was that we would go on either side. Dad would drive down to the bottom, and there would be another road below, and he would find a little perch where he could see very well across the whole valley. And then we would go down the hill and scare the deer out, and then he would shoot it. And believe it or not, this actually normally worked pretty well, but we had no success so far that year. So we were getting ready, and it wasn't even light out, but you could just see the little bit of fog lifting, and it was getting a little lighter. And so Dad, about 15 minutes before daylight, he says, "Okay, I'm going to drive down, but all right, you guys understand? You're going to now be careful. Be sure you have your safety on the gun." And he did not have to ask me twice because I wanted that safety on 24/7. I never wanted to take it off. So he goes, "Okay, be sure to do that. And today is the beginning of elk season, so there's a little crossover here, and those you have to be careful because those elk hunters, they'll shoot at anything." I thought, what? Wait, what? They'll shoot at anything? What am I doing out here? I thought, oh no. But he goes around to the truck, he's getting in, and we're all in our position. We're like ready to go down the canyon. We're all ready. And Dad looks back and he goes, "Norman?" I say, "Yeah." He says, "Don't dawdle." "Yes, sir." And then he left. And then it was that quiet time, right as daylight's coming. It was maybe my favorite part of hunting. I wasn't with anybody. I was just standing and looking at the valley, a little valley. And you saw the fog lift, and the sun started to shine on it a little bit. The sun had just risen. And we're waiting for Dad to get down below. And I tell you, that canyon was so beautiful. It was almost worth all the trouble it was to get there. Well, eventually Dad drove in down below. We watched him get out of the pickup way down there, way down there. And then he got to a spot, he kind of waved. Then we all looked over at Vern, or Stan and I did, and Vern went. And we went down, we started to go down the hill. Now, I like I say, my job was to stay in sight of both my brothers. Now, we always tried to make the canyon so that it had a new growth of trees in it, because those deer, they just love to eat the little tops off those little trees. And so that's where they would hang out. So we would go down the hill, and I made a lot of noise no matter what. And so I was good at driving the deer out. And I went along, but every couple of minutes, I'd be looking down to make sure that safety hadn't magically gone off or anything. And so I'd be walking along and trying to stay between my brothers. I was really trying to be a good boy. But I got down a little ways, and suddenly I I realized I kept almost tripping over things because I was actually trying to hunt. And then I thought, well, I'll just look down. That'll be the safest thing. So I looked down and oh, there was a red rock. I picked it up. It's pretty cool. I put it in my pocket. And then I was walking along. Oh, look at that one. That one's got veins. Oh, this one's kind of purple. And I kept putting them in my pockets as I went down the way. And finally, I got so many in my pockets, I had to sit down. I put my gun down and I started to look around in my pockets and weed some out. And then I got rid of a few, and then I got back up, and I looked to my left, no Vern. Looked to my right, no Stan. I had dawdled. So I started to run down the hill ways, and I tripped and fell and made a big ruckus, but that was kind of my job anyway. And I'm making all kinds of mud all over me. I skidded along. I hit my knee on something. I'm telling you, I skidded finally on my bottom for about 20 feet or so, and then I got up and walked along, and it looked like the creek kind of went into a storm drain, which was unusual for out in the woods. And then I looked at both ways, and there were my brothers. And so I started acting like I was hunting again for deer, not rocks. I walked along a little ways, and we came to I guess it looked like a road right across where we were going. There were no trees right there. It was really weird, but I remembered that, it was a thing that the logging companies would put in for drainage. But it was weird. It was like a little road that hadn't been tamped down that went right across the canyon. I mean, there was no way to drive on it, but it was really odd. And stepped on it, and they were really big rocks, like football size, and they made a noise every time you stepped. Oh, it was so weird. I was walking across this, and we were all kind of making quite a bit of noise just walking on those rocks. And suddenly I looked over at my brother Vern, and then I kind of heard something. I mean, it was loud. It was like a stampede or something, or a truck was coming up over the canyon. And we looked over there, and then I saw horns above my brother, and suddenly elk came up over the hill. They were right on this little 30-foot road, it looked like, but they were right on it. And they were walking across, and they were coming right at us. Now, and my first thought was run, because I mean, I had seen the Mutual of Omaha special with them banging their horns against each other during the rut. I thought, oh no. So I saw that all happening, but my brother Vern, he was cool. He just went, and then he squatted down. We were right in the middle of that drainage area. And the deer, the elk were coming right at us. And so they're coming down, and then we were still standing, and he's like, I squatted, and Stan squatted down, just like a catcher in a baseball game. And I look over, and the elk were surrounding my brother. They acted like he wasn't even there. It was like magic. No trees around. They came closer and closer. I tell you, my heart was beating so fast, and my breathing was... It was scary. But when they got near me, they just walked around me. And I could see their nostrils breathing. Like steam was coming out of their nose. It was scary, but fascinating, wonderful. Breathing and breathing. One of them stepped like a foot from me. I could have touched it, but like I said, it was so scary. They walked past, and finally, my heart started to slow down. Am I breathing? Calm. It was like magic. We were all surrounded by this herd going right past us, and they just kept coming up over the ridge. Until finally, they were going over the other side, and they went past my brother, and then me, and then my brother Stanley, and they were gone. I looked back at my brother Vern, because he was the one to look for, and he went. He had the biggest grin on his face, and his eyes, oh, they were twinkling. Well, finally we were all up, and he went, and we went back down the hill. We got to the truck, and Dad was hopping mad. He's like, those dang elk, they ruined the hunt. Oh, stupid elk. I can't believe it. Oh, wasted a whole morning. Oh, I can't believe we did this. This is terrible. And those three gathered at the back of the truck, and we got out our breakfast sandwiches, same as our lunch sandwiches, liverwurst. And I got my sandwich, and I could tell they had stuff to talk about. It wasn't anything I was interested in. I wasn't part of that. So I went to the front of the truck, and I sat down against the bank and unwrapped my sandwich out of the wax paper. And Mom had slathered mine in Dijon mustard and put a bunch of cheddar cheese in there, so I wouldn't have to taste the liverwurst that much. I took a bite, and then I started to take out all my rocks, and there were plenty. And I started to sort them out, trying to find the best ones, because I knew there was going to be at least 2 more runs down another canyon eventually. And so I thought, well, I don't want to have too many, so I'm weeding them out, trying to figure the best 5 maybe. And suddenly, I'm over there, I'm eating. Vern sat down next to me. Hi. He goes, that was pretty neat, wasn't it? I said, yeah, it was. It was amazing. He said, yeah. He said, well, what'd you get? He goes, oh, I think these 4 are the best, probably. He goes, yeah. He goes, all right. He reached in his pocket and he says, this is what I got. And he had 6 rocks in his hand, all better than mine. I couldn't believe it. And I realized maybe we had a connection. Maybe I did fit in with my brother. And we were close for the rest of his life. We talked on the phone almost every day when I was in high school. And he always had advice for me. He'd find a job, and I'd get a job as a laborer on his job. We worked together, played together, we laughed a lot together. And we were that way all the way until he died. But I tell you, I still feel that connection, even now. The elk. Well, I'd like to do a story in song. It's based on probably the most told song or a story in all of Norway, and most people have heard of it in the United States. There are many, many children's books of it. And here we go. As I trip-trapped o'er a bridge one morning, as I trip-trapped o'er the bridge one day, who should I spy but a grumpy old troll there hid under the bridge, nestled lying in wait. He asked me who goes there, he told me to stop there, he told me he planned to make a meal out of me. I said, you must wait here for my older brother, for he is much larger and tasty to eat. I trip-trapped to the meadow to eat of the grasses, and eagerly awaited my brother to arrive. And as he approached, the old troll engaged him, and I witnessed my brother in a deal for his life. Well, he motioned a horn to my dear eldest brother, who steadily approached on a path close behind. I saw the troll nod as if in agreement, for big brother Gruff was much greater by far. Trip trap, the eldest Gruff stomped as his great hooves did strike the boards loud as he went. Old troll signaled clearly for brother to stop there. Big brother just lowered his head and sped up. That troll went a-flying, for he knew what had hit him, and he howled and he wailed, sailing over the side. The troll's back hit the river with a splash and a shiver, and never again did he threaten our lives. Oh, my name is Billy, and this is my story. Oh, this is the story of my brothers and I, who met an old troll on a bridge one fine morning and tripped up to fame in the annals of time. Oh, we trip-trapped to fame in the annals of time. Thank you.